So, football season is upon us. Being an avid sports fan, I haven't missed a single game. Alright, in all honesty, I haven't watched a single game. And it's been so many years since I've watched a football game, I couldn't even probably name an active player right now. But I do watch the local news. And inevitably they have a sports reporter. And at my company, there are tons of sports fans. More so than probably any company I've worked with, because it's all I hear about. That's all they talk about. Fantasy football and their bracket for basketball, and regrettably none of them like hockey, and that's the only one that I can really stomach. But I once heard a guy that was on my team, and he was going on and on and on about the NBA teams that had made it to the finals. Again, I couldn't tell you which one it was because, just one of those things that I didn't really care about. But something did catch my eye. He kept using the word great to describe them. The team had a great defense. They were great at rebounding. They had a great three-point shooters. They had a great inside game. Whatever that means. I mean, for me, it really was overkill with all this great about the team. And when I was researching for this sermon, that came into my mind, how we get all caught up in how great something is. But what does it mean to be great? The world around us uses the word to describe many different things. But what do we use to measure greatness? The world around us uses power. A great person is measured by the things they have the ability to control. The world around us uses prestige. A person's greatness is measured by the accolades they receive. Position. A person's greatness is measured by where they are in life. And possessions. A person is great, and that's measured by the things that they own. This might surprise you, but Jesus has a completely different way of defining greatness. Greatness is not measured by what you have or what you can do. It's not measured by who you are or where you are in life. Greatness for a Christian is more about why you do what you do and who you do it for. See, greatness flows out of giving, not getting. And I believe in the eyes of Jesus, greatness flows from three specific things. And those things are sacrifice, service, and selflessness. See, first, greatness flows out of sacrifice. The hope and peace that we have as Christians flows out of a sacrifice that Christ himself made. Our peace comes from the fact that Jesus traded the glory of heaven for the grime of earth, that he traded the praises of angels for the insults of men. See, Jesus gave up his position in heaven to take up a position on the cross. He said the Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And 3 days later, he will rise. See, Jesus felt the sting of betrayal. Jesus was betrayed by someone who had followed him from the beginning of his ministry. Someone from his inner circle. See, Judas betrayed Jesus to a corrupt religious leadership that would have him killed. I think we need to remember that Jesus was also betrayed by Peter when he denied Christ 3 times. Jesus was betrayed by the rest of the disciples as well as they turned and ran away from him in his darkest hour. He was crucified. And Jesus died the most horrible death known to humanity at the time. But why did he do that? He did that because he was willing to die. He was not forced to go to the cross, but rather he made the choice. Because he loved us that much. Jesus had a desire to sacrifice because he loved us more than life itself. But he also did that because he was revealing God's plan to us. Jesus was revealing the Father's plan to the disciples. They just could not understand what was going on. They didn't understand what he was talking about. Jesus was showing them and us that he did not die because men wanted to kill him. He died because he wanted to restore right relationship between God and man. To tear down that divide between us. So that way we would have that access. And he was revealing to us a great hope. See, Jesus gave the disciples a wonderful hope that they would later see as a transforming point in their lives. Jesus did die, but he was raised from the dead to live forever and reveal that the life that only God can give each person. But see, Jesus isn't the only one called for sacrifice. We as his disciples are called to share in that sacrifice with him. Contrary to what some conservative Christians would have you believe, we are blessed to avoid most of the persecution that happens in the world today. Christians in the Middle East would even look at some of the squabbles that Christians have here and say, we have no idea what persecution really is. And contrary to popular belief, being required to do your job with the government is not religious persecution. Being under threat of being beheaded by an oppressive force for practicing your faith is persecution. But see, God does not call us to live out, to give our lives. Some of us he does, in different situations. But instead he asks us something much harder. He says that we have to give up our will. See, you'll never reach your true potential in Christ until you surrender the entirety of your will to him. And that's a difficult thing. Last week we talked about the tongue. And that plays a role in that. You have to surrender. Our calling is to first die to ourselves on a daily basis. Are the things that you're living for right now, are they worth dying for? Truly? If not, you're really not living. It's only when you sacrifice our selfishness that we find a true depth of Christ within us. Where you see, even sacrifice isn't enough for greatness. Greatness also flows out of service. Our idea of greatness, it comes from things like position and prestige and power. And they flow out of selfish desire. The simple reality of this is that our selfish desire has no place in our life with Christ. We can't be driven for self. Because whenever you become a disciple of Christ, it's no longer I, it's we. We are in this together. American culture likes to individualize, and we're all on our own. To some degree, that's true. But ultimately, it's about we. We want things our way. We want to do things our way. We want the best for us. We want our personal rights, and we want the rewards of life. We want to be able to tell someone that I can't do my job because my religion tells me I can't do it for you. There's nothing wrong with getting recognition. I don't want you to think that. There's nothing wrong with having a position. There's nothing wrong with getting a reward, as long as the motivation is for the right reasons. Jesus makes it a habit of lifting up those who serve him so that he can be glorified. A minister from a century back used to tell a story of two traveling boaters who transported cargo. They left Memphis about the same time, traveling down the Mississippi River to New Orleans. As they traveled side by side, sailors from one vessel made a few remarks about the snail's pace of the other. Words were exchanged, challenges were made, and the race began. The competition became vicious as the two boats bore through the deep south. One boat began to fall back, not enough fuel. There had been plenty of coal for the trip, but not enough for a race. As the boat dropped back, the enterprising young sailor took some of the ship's cargo and tossed it into the ovens. When the sailors saw that the supplies burned as well as the coal, they fueled the boat with the material they had been assigned to transport. Luckily for them, they ended up winning the race. Regrettably, they burned all their cargo. See, as the disciples were walking with Christ, they were arguing over who was going to win, who was the greatest. They were doing nothing more than fighting over who was top dog, who was going to be first. They were fussing and fighting, and they were acting like those cargo transporters. They had to be first, no matter the cost. So we often criticize the disciples in situations like this. But if we're being really honest, we aren't much different. There have been times when we've wanted our way. There have been times when we've all fought to move up. There have been times when we've made us fuss over insignificant things. But how do we get over that? How do we move into that service mentality? We remember that we're here to serve Christ. And that by serving him, we're here to serve our brother. And that we're not the most important person in the room. And see, that leads us to that third point. Greatness flows out of selflessness. The gospel today says that then he took a child and he had him stand in front of them, and he put his arms around him and said to them, "Whoever welcomes in my name, one of these children welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes not only me, but the one who sent me." The word used there in today's gospel for child was the exact same word that they used for servant. So Jesus is expanding what he had just said about being a servant. Children in this time were viewed completely different than they are now. Today, children are an important part of society and an important part of the church. In the first century, children had absolutely no rights, no position, no power. Remember, Child labor was completely legal until the 1920s. And in some countries, it still happens today. But is Jesus meaning just accepting a child? Or does he mean something different? See, when Jesus uses the word welcome here, it would seem that he means to welcome the nature of a child. This would clearly go hand in hand with his teaching of greatness. To achieve greatness in the eyes of Christ, you have to give up to go up. And he said, I assure you that unless you change and become like children, you'll never enter the kingdom of God. The greatness in the kingdom is the one who humbles himself and becomes like a child. Matthew 18:3 and 4. Again, children were not seen as full persons. And were given the stature of property, much like women. But they have fewer rights than women. Many rabbis even classified children in the same category as the deaf, the weak, and slaves. Today, though, again, children are a very vital part of our society and our church. Jesus was trying to remind the disciples and us that true greatness means that we belong to God. We are his. We rely on him. And we are under his authority. Well, what does it mean to be great? Sometimes it means that we sacrifice because we're called to give up who we are right now to become who God wants us to be. It means that we serve because we're called to give ourselves to others and invest in our lives and in those lives around us. And it means that we be selfless, but because we're called to give to ourselves to Christ and to his kingdom. Over the coming week, I challenge you to think about what it means to be great and what I talked about. And then take a little time with God and ask, am I great? Am I who you want me to be, God? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Amen.